Good morning, Jill Winebanks.
Good morning, Stephanie. How are you today?
I love it when you sweet tweet me. You tweet.
Oh, I'm glad you saw it.
I sweet tweeted you back. You tweeted, you cannot make this up. A.G. Barr's father hired Epstein without a college degree to teach at the prep school he ran and wrote 2 books while Epstein worked there. One, Space Relations, a slightly gothic interplanetary tale, is about sex slaves. Check Google if you don't believe. Jack tweeted, I believe you because I heard it on the Stephanie Miller show. Then you said, then it must be true. I love Stephanie Miller. And I wrote, I love you. Let's talk about all this tomorrow.
Thanks. I was so when someone sent that to me, I went, this has to be made up. How could this be true? It just can't be. And I went on Amazon, and sure enough, there are 2 books that Donald Barr, the Attorney General's father, wrote, and one is about sex slaves in space, and he wrote it while Jeffrey Epstein was working for him.
You just cannot write this. I mean, and I said to you on Twitter, first of all, he should recuse from a lot of things, including the entire Attorney Generalship of the United States. But, nobody trusts him. No one trusts him to do an investigation of Epstein's death. It's like we don't have a Justice Department, isn't it?
He must recuse. He probably should resign in shame. But that's for so many things that he's done. But he does have to recuse in this episode. There's no question that he is responsible for supervising the Bureau of Prisons. He was aware of the problems and the understaffing, and if he didn't make it a priority to protect Epstein, there's a reason. And, there's a lot of potential that needs investigating here, and I am not a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I preface everything I say with that, too, Jill. It really is.
But this one is supported by facts. You have a history here of a relationship between Barr's father and Epstein, of the connection between Barr and the president, Barr and Epstein, Trump and Epstein. It's just, you can't have them investigating themselves.
And you saw the latest this morning, right? The autopsy found that there were multiple breaks in his neck bones.
Yes,
which could be hanging, but they're saying more common in victims of homicide by strangulation.
Right. And that's from a very reliable source. That's from the Washington Post, Carol Leonhardt, and I think that is something that is suspicious, at least. And when you put all these suspicious things together, I'm sorry, but they form a pattern that leads to a conclusion that he didn't hang himself. And I still haven't seen, have you, exactly how he did it? What tools did he use to hang himself? And from what did he hang himself in a cell that is supposed to be safe?
Well, they said the bed, with a bed sheet, the whole thing, you're right, the whole thing just is sketchy.
Even a bunk bed is not high enough up
to
hang yourself from. If you were holding your legs bent in order to stay off the ground, you would become unconscious and your legs would fall, but long before you would be dead.
Right.
So I just don't see the physical ability to do that. Did he tie his legs up first so that they wouldn't fall? That would take more thought than I think anybody would. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't answer this. I want to see evidence. It's the same thing that I want to see in terms of the Russian investigation. I want to see the witnesses. I want to hear them. I want to have pictures drawn for me. I want it laid out in a way that all people can comprehend and that we know the answer.
Yeah.
And then I want to know what's in all the 2,000 documents and whose names are there that might be suspect in wanting him gone.
Just when you thought this could not get more bizarre, have you seen the New York Post this morning? Jeffrey Epstein had an oil painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress, lounging on a chair in the Oval Office, hanging in his Manhattan townhouse. It's a painting. It's an oil painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress and heels.
The only worst image that I can think of is Alan Dershowitz in his underwear getting a massage.
Oh, God!
No. Jill Louise.
Your parents have sex. I'm sorry.
But Jill, at a quite serious level, this is what's so terrifying of feeling like we do not have a Justice Department. You feel like whatever was seized you feel like Barr will politicize it, right? If there's Democrats, he'll make sure they're implicated. But
Yep.
if Trump is implicated, we'll never know about if there's a tape of that, right?
Yes, I am afraid I agree. The only hope we have is that it was the Southern District of New York, which has, at least by reputation from the past, a reputation as an independent arbiter of justice, and has seemingly acted that way to date, although there are some areas of the investigation of the Trump Organization and Trump Foundation that I'm a little concerned haven't been acted on. So at this point, you can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
And it makes it all that much more important that the Democrats get their act together and take the Senate and the presidency.
Well, and also I think the House Judiciary may be, looking into this Epstein thing. I mean, they have so much on their plate. Jill, I wanted to also get your take on this latest. A federal judge yesterday rejected the House Judiciary's committee bid to formally link the two lawsuits it contends will expedite its decision to recommend articles of impeachment. The two lawsuits, one is to get the grand jury evidence, the other is to get compel testimony from McGahn. So they argued they should be considered together because both arose from Mueller's probe and are central to the House impeachment deliberations. So Judge Beryl Howell ruled that connections between the two suits are too superficial, decided the McGahn case should be randomly assigned to a federal judge. The only good news I see here is the McGahn case was randomly assigned to an Obama-appointed judge. So, haha, number one.
Well, it does depend on who the judge is. And unfortunately, I remember the days when we used to trust the federal judiciary to act in an independent way.
Right.
Now we have to consider the political nature of the judiciary under the recent appointments, which are too numerous to ignore. And so you do have to worry about whether it's appointed to a judge who will exercise independent judgment. And the advantage of linking them was that there was a perceived fair judge with the first case, so by linking them, it would have been the same. But I think the law is strong. And I remember Jim Neal, who was the lead lawyer on the Watergate obstruction case.
Right.
Jim Neal used to say there are some cases that you can never win, and there are some cases you can never lose. It all depends on if the facts are with you or if the law is with you. And, in this case, I think the facts and the law are on the side of both the release of grand jury evidence and subpoenaing McGahn. I really don't see any precedent that would be opposed to that. The immunity claimed is there's never been an absolute immunity. It falls in the face of a criminal investigation, and this is a legitimate investigation, and any kind of immunity or privilege should fall. And it's clearly a judicial proceeding,
right,
which is allowed to get grand jury records under the rules of evidence. So,
Jill, we're getting, obviously the numbers are really, going up, two in the last, just yesterday for impeachment among House Democrats. Yeah, my feeling is we need to really hit the ground running time-wise in September when we get back. So I keep urging people to still call and write, because does this ruling call for really, full out calling it an impeachment? Because Gerald Nadler has said we are in an impeachment inquiry. What's your opinion?
I think he's called it as clearly as you can call it. I would feel confident going to court with his statements and saying this is a judicial proceeding. We are in an impeachment inquiry. We are in the stages preliminary to voting. We are considering whether to bring articles of impeachment. I don't think anything more is necessary. I think that it's a legitimate judicial proceeding right now, and that the courts can go on that. And I do think, obviously time is an issue, and so you're right. I'm hoping that all citizens are talking to their representatives during the August recess.
Yep.
Their congressmen, their congresswomen, their senators, and letting them know that they are not afraid of what the facts will be, and they want to have the hearing, whatever the outcome will be. It's better for Americans to know, and obviously at the same time, Congress must act on protecting the elections and stopping Russian or other foreign interference in the 2020 election.
Yep.
People need to trust that.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot for Congress to do, and I know from my Watergate experience that they can do more than one thing at a time. They can conduct impeachment hearings and pass legislation.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what's necessary.
Jill Wine-Banks, may I just say, of all of my guests, raunchy comedians, etc., I would never think that classy legal lady, brooch-wearing Watergate prosecutor Jill Wine-Banks would be the one that would bring up Alan Dershowitz in his underwear.
Well,
so
he said that, I have had this image in my mind, and it's just horrifying. Horrifying.
Yeah.
So I can't help it. Can't help it.
I think your dog's horrified too.
Is that your corgi? It is even disturbing dogs, the thought of Alan Dershowitz in his underwear. I hope you're happy with yourself, young lady.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jill. See you next time.
You're one back.
All right.
They're talking to each other.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank
that's so
you.
adorable.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for calling.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. Is that her corgis? Those are her corgis.
Yeah.
She's like the queen. She's the legal queen.
Right.
With her corgis.